Welcome to the Occult Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Carter, and in today's episode we step into the veiled world of Freemasonry, where secrets are said to be guarded with more devotion than gold. At the heart of this hidden hierarchy lies the 33rd degree, a level spoken of in whispers, where ancient rituals and forbidden knowledge converge. What truths were locked behind those closed doors, and why were we never meant to know them? The roots of Freemasonry stretch back into the medieval guilds of stoneworkers, but its modern form rose in 17th and 18th century Europe, a time of shifting empires and clashing ideologies. Monarchs were losing absolute power, new scientific ideas were threatening church doctrine, and whispers of revolution spread across the continent. Within this climate, men of influence and intellect gathered in secret lodges, creating a brotherhood bound by ritual, symbol, and oath. For the ordinary observer, these gatherings were social clubs. For those on the inside, they were sanctuaries of hidden tradition, where ancient mysteries from Egypt, Babylon, and the Holy Land were woven into a new fabric of power. The 33 degrees of Freemasonry were not established overnight. They emerged within the Scottish Rite, which claimed to preserve forgotten wisdom carried through the Crusades and hidden by the Knights Templar. The lower degrees introduced moral allegories designed to teach lessons of integrity and loyalty. Yet the higher one climbed, the more layered the rituals became, steeped in esoteric symbolism that hinted at knowledge not meant for the common man. By the time a Mason reached the upper degrees, he was immersed in allegories of kingship, divine order, and cosmic authority. The 33rd degree was spoken of as the pinnacle, a final veil where ultimate secrets lay waiting. The political context of the 18th and 19th centuries gave these lodges immense weight. Revolutionaries in France, intellectuals in Britain, and new leaders in America all moved within circles influenced by Masonic thought. Symbols of the craft found their way into architecture, city planning, even the dollar bill. To outsiders, this influence seemed like coincidence. To believers, it was proof that the ancient patterns of sacred geometry and occult numerology were being intentionally etched into the foundations of modern nations. The higher degrees, especially the elusive 33rd, became linked to whispers of hidden architects who shaped history from behind the curtain. The atmosphere within the lodges was designed to evoke awe and obedience. Torchlit chambers, solemn oaths, and rituals modelled after death and rebirth impressed upon initiates that they were part of something beyond ordinary comprehension. In a world where church and crown controlled the minds of the masses, the lodges offered an alternative chain of command, one rooted in secrecy and brotherhood rather than open governance. This secrecy itself became dangerous, for both religious authorities and governments saw in it a rival system of loyalty. The higher degrees, whispered to grant access to forbidden wisdom, carried the scent of treason, heresy, and subversion. This was the crucible from which the 33rd degree emerged, a time and place where knowledge was power and power was survival. To ascend to the summit was not just an honor, it was an initiation into a hidden current of influence that flowed beneath the surface of history, untouchable by the common eye, yet shaping the destiny of nations. Whispers of the 33rd degree grew louder as scattered accounts began to emerge from those who claimed to glimpse its inner workings. In the early 19th century, documents tied to the Scottish Rite surfaced in France, suggesting that beyond the familiar ceremonies of initiation lay a hidden layer reserved for the most trusted and powerful. These texts spoke not of simple moral lessons, but of cosmic allegories, rites of resurrection, and oaths to preserve truths said to predate Christianity itself. For governments already uneasy with the growing influence of secret societies, this was alarming. If leaders were swearing loyalty to something higher than nation or church, who truly held authority? The church moved quickly to condemn the order. Papal decrees in the 19th century denounced Freemasonry as heretical, accusing it of devil worship and conspiracy. Libraries that once preserved documents on ritual and symbolism were raided, books confiscated, and Masons excommunicated from Catholic communities. Yet persecution did not erase the allure. Instead, it deepened the sense of forbidden knowledge. The harder authorities tried to bury these rites, the more they grew in mystique. Some accounts describe manuscripts quietly copied and hidden by brothers who feared erasure. Others tell of entire lodges disappearing under pressure, their members scattered, but their traditions carried in silence. Suppression was not limited to the church. Political powers also saw threat in the lodges. In parts of Europe, Freemasons were accused of fanning the flames of revolution, fueling uprisings with their networks of influence. In the United States, the mysterious disappearance of William Morgan in 1826, after he threatened to publish a book exposing Masonic secrets, sparked the first wave of anti-Masonic movements. Entire political parties were formed to challenge the order, demanding transparency and accusing it of controlling courts, banks, and legislatures. The ferocity of the response suggests how dangerous these secrets were believed to be. The most carefully guarded knowledge of the 33rd degree remained out of reach, but fragments escaped suppression. Symbols etched into architecture, encoded in literature, or whispered in oral traditions pointed toward a current of hidden teachings that refused to be extinguished. The very attempt to bury them became part of their mythology. Each book burned, each man silenced, reinforced the suspicion that the 33rd degree contained truth too disruptive for ordinary society. Governments and churches insisted they were protecting the faithful. Yet in the shadows, a different story lingered, one of hidden archives, stolen manuscripts, and a brotherhood that survived precisely because it was forbidden. Evidence of what might lie within the 33rd degree has never been offered openly, but fragments have surfaced like broken shards of a larger design. One of the most cited sources is the ritual book known as Morals and Dogma, written by Albert Pike in the late 19th century. Pike, a towering figure in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry in America, described layers of symbolism that drew from Kabbalah, Gnosticism, and the mysteries of ancient Babylon. He wrote of hidden currents of light and shadow, of an eternal struggle between spiritual awakening and forces of ignorance. To Pike's critics, this was proof that Masonry flirted with heresy. To his admirers, it was a rare glimpse into truths concealed within allegory. Other pieces of evidence come from architecture and city planning. The streets of Washington, D.C., arranged with precision into geometric patterns, appear to mirror Masonic symbols such as the square, the compass, and the pentagram. The Great Seal of the United States, bearing the all-seeing eye above an unfinished pyramid, is often cited as a deliberate nod to Masonic influence. Though mainstream historians argue these symbols were chosen for aesthetic or cultural reasons, the overlap with esoteric traditions is striking. Could these be clues, hidden in plain sight, left by men who carried the knowledge of the higher degrees? Accounts from defectors add another layer to the puzzle. In rare confessions and testimonies, some describe elaborate initiation chambers adorned with skulls, black drapes, and symbols of rebirth. Others claim the ceremonies of the highest degrees mimic death itself, requiring the initiate to symbolically perish and rise anew, transformed into a vessel of higher knowledge. Such rituals echo ancient initiations of Egypt and the Eleusinian mysteries of Greece, where candidates were guided through darkness before receiving a revelation of the divine. These parallels suggest that the 33rd degree may preserve fragments of a tradition stretching back to the dawn of civilization. The written record is equally enigmatic. Letters between early Masonic leaders reference sublime secrets that could not be entrusted to parchment. Instructions to destroy certain documents after use hint that the most important teachings were never meant to be recorded at all, only passed by word of mouth within the inner circle. The silence of the archive may itself be the strongest evidence that there was something too powerful, too dangerous, to leave vulnerable to discovery. Whether we look at Pike's writings, the symbolism etched into capitals, or the rare testimony of insiders, the fragments all point to a hidden truth buried just beneath the surface, waiting to be pieced together into a picture we were never meant to see. Across civilizations, separated by oceans and centuries, we find echoes of the same symbols that appear in Masonic ritual, particularly in the mysteries surrounding the 33rd degree. The square and compass, central to Freemasonry, recall not only the tools of medieval builders, but also the sacred implements of ancient architects. In Egypt, temple priests used measuring cords and angled rods to align monuments with celestial bodies. In China, the Luo Pan compass of feng shui masters sought harmony between earth and heaven. In each case, geometry became a bridge between human design and cosmic order, suggesting that Masonic tools are far more than emblems of trade. They are fragments of an ancient science of balance and creation. The number 33 itself appears repeatedly in religious and esoteric traditions. In Christianity, 33 is the age of Christ at his crucifixion and resurrection, symbolizing transformation and eternal life. In Hinduism, ancient texts speak of 33 deities who embody cosmic principles. In numerology, 33 is regarded as a master number, representing spiritual service, enlightenment, and hidden wisdom. To find this number enshrined as the highest degree in Masonry raises the question, are we witnessing coincidence or the deliberate preservation of an archetype that transcends culture? Architectural alignments across continents add another layer of mystery. The pyramids of Giza in Egypt, the great ziggurats of Mesopotamia, and the Mayan temples of Central America all reflect advanced knowledge of astronomy and mathematics. Despite no known contact, their structures echo similar principles of orientation and proportion. Within Masonic lore, these sites are often referenced as reservoirs of hidden wisdom, built by initiates who understood the secret geometry of the universe. Could the rituals of the higher degrees be a symbolic reenactment of teachings once practiced by ancient priesthoods? Even myths and legends show uncanny parallels. The story of a dying and resurrected god appears in Egypt with Osiris, in Greece with Dionysus, and in Christianity with Christ. Within Masonic ritual, the allegory of Hiram Abiff, the slain architect who rises through memory and ritual, mirrors this archetype. When placed alongside the initiation stories of mystery schools from Greece and India, it suggests that Masonry carries echoes of an eternal myth. The 33rd degree, then, may represent not just a title of honor, but a living link to a universal pattern of death, transformation, and rebirth. Such cross-civilizational echoes challenge the belief that Freemasonry is merely a fraternal organization born in medieval Europe. Instead, they hint at a hidden current of wisdom, preserved in fragments, carried through symbols, and resurfacing in the rituals of the craft. The consistency of these patterns across cultures implies that the 33rd degree may be more than ceremony. It may be a key that unlocks a memory shared by all of humanity, stretching back to a forgotten origin. When the subject of the 33rd degree array arises in scholarly circles, it is often met with dismissal or silence. Official histories describe Freemasonry as a fraternal order, rooted in Enlightenment ideals, charity and symbolism, without deeper consequence. University historians frame it as a curious footnote in the development of civic society, insisting that the higher degrees are elaborate theatre rather than repositories of dangerous truths. Yet the vigour with which institutions work to contain the conversation is telling. The topic is either brushed aside as irrelevant or condemned as superstition, with little room for serious investigation. Academic denial often relies on the argument that secrecy itself discredits the order. If something cannot be openly demonstrated, then it cannot be considered valid. This approach overlooks the very nature of initiatory traditions, which have always reserved their most potent teachings for the few deemed ready to receive them. The ancient mystery schools of Greece, Egypt, and India guarded their rites with equal silence. To claim that silence proves emptiness is to ignore the long pattern of hidden knowledge across human history. Still, such reasoning persists in classrooms, journals, and conferences, reinforcing the boundaries of what is considered respectable study. Funding structures in research also play a role. Universities and scholars depend on grants, many of which come from government agencies or private institutions with their own interests in maintaining social stability. Occult studies, particularly those that question the integrity of political or religious power, are often labelled fringe. A historian who attempts to explore the esoteric currents of Freemasonry risks ridicule, the loss of funding, or the end of an academic career. In this way, the wall of denial is not built on evidence, but on fear and professional survival. It ensures that certain questions remain unasked and certain avenues of exploration remain closed. When institutions do address the subject, they often rely on reductive explanations. Rituals are described as harmless pageantry. Symbols are dismissed as decorative. The number 33 is explained as a mere organizational choice. Such simplifications avoid engagement with the deeper parallels that connect Masonic rites to ancient traditions. They strip the subject of its mystery, flattening it into something mundane. Yet the persistence of these parallels and the secrecy surrounding them continues to suggest otherwise. The official narrative insists there is nothing to see. The institutions of scholarship present themselves as protectors of truth. But by refusing to look beyond the surface, they may be protecting not truth, but a carefully constructed silence. The 33rd degree remains, in their view, a ceremonial honor. But the refusal to confront its deeper implications leaves open the possibility that what is being protected is not academic integrity, but a hidden current of knowledge the public was never meant to access. Among the theories that step outside the official narrative, some of the most provocative concern the very nature of the 33rd degree. One thread suggests that initiates are exposed to knowledge of advanced civilizations lost to time, cultures that mastered energy, architecture, and consciousness in ways modern science has yet to rediscover. Supporters of this view point to the precision of the Great Pyramid, the astronomical alignments of Stonehenge, and the enduring mystery of ancient megaliths. They argue that such feats required more than primitive tools. They hint at a body of knowledge preserved in fragments, passed down through priesthoods, and eventually hidden within the highest levels of Masonry. Another theory ventures into the realm of consciousness itself. Some researchers suggest that the rituals of the higher degrees are not symbolic alone, but are designed to trigger altered states of awareness. In these states, initiates may experience visions or insights that feel like contact with another dimension of reality. Parallels are drawn to shamanic rites in South America, the Eleusinian mysteries of Greece, and yogic practices in India. Could the 33rd degree be a continuation of this ancient technology of the mind, a carefully preserved initiation into states of awareness that dissolve the boundaries between the human and the divine? A third interpretation points toward contact with intelligences beyond humanity. Accounts of secret lodges, both historical and modern, speak of invocations and rituals that call upon beings described as angels, watchers, or ascended masters. Skeptics dismiss these as metaphors, yet the consistency of such descriptions across cultures raises the possibility that initiates are seeking genuine communion with non-human entities. Whether these beings are benevolent guides or deceptive tricksters remains a matter of fierce debate. The possibility that the highest degree includes a channel of contact with otherworldly intelligence would explain both the secrecy and the fear it inspires. The most controversial theory suggests that the 33rd degree grants access to methods of influencing energy itself. Ancient traditions often spoke of a hidden force called prana, chi, or vril that permeates all life. Within Masonic lore, hints of this life force appear in allegories of light, balance, and transformation. Some theorists believe that initiates of the highest level are taught techniques to harness this energy, not merely as metaphor, but as real power. If such knowledge were widely understood, it could disrupt religion, politics, and even the foundations of modern science. Each of these possibilities, whether rooted in lost civilizations, altered consciousness, otherworldly contact, or hidden energy, stretches the imagination. Yet the very persistence of these ideas suggests they fill a void left by the silence of official accounts. If the 33rd degree is nothing more than a ceremonial honor, why do these theories continue to thrive? The secrecy itself may be the reason. In the absence of clear answers, the unknown invites the most profound and unsettling possibilities. The idea that humanity simply forgot these teachings over time is difficult to accept when we examine the deliberate patterns of erasure that appear again and again throughout history. Ancient libraries from Alexandria to Nalanda were consumed by flames under suspicious circumstances. Entire traditions were labelled heretical and driven underground, their texts destroyed or locked away in church vaults where only a select few could access them. Whenever knowledge threatened to shift the balance of power, it was targeted. This was not passive neglect. It was active suppression, and the story of Freemasonry's higher degrees fits this pattern seamlessly. The Vatican archives are a striking example. Buried beneath Rome lies a collection so vast that scholars estimate it would take centuries to read in full. Access is tightly controlled. Even respected historians are granted only small windows into its contents, chosen by those who oversee it. What rests behind those locked doors? Some believe the records include lost gospels, accounts of early initiatory rituals, and even documents that confirm the influence of secret orders like the Masons. If the 33rd degree preserves truths too dangerous for public knowledge, these archives may well hold corroborating evidence kept hidden to maintain religious authority. Government intelligence agencies have also played their part in erasure. During the 20th century, programs investigating psychic phenomena, mind control, and esoteric practices were launched in secrecy. When fragments of these projects leaked into the public domain, they were quickly dismissed. Yet the documents reveal a sustained interest in the very powers that occult traditions have long described. It raises the question, did agencies infiltrate or monitor Masonic lodges, particularly those of the higher degrees, not out of curiosity, but because they believed real techniques of influence were being guarded there? If so, any findings that confirmed such suspicions would have been classified, buried in the archives of state security. Even within Masonry itself, there are signs of intentional withholding. Not every Mason, even those of high rank, is permitted to glimpse the inner teachings. The structure of degrees ensures that only the most trusted are ushered into the deepest layers. Instructions to destroy certain documents after rituals, or to pass teachings only orally, suggest that secrecy is not simply tradition, but strategy. What is not written cannot be confiscated, censored, or twisted by enemies. In this way, the Brotherhood ensured survival by making its most potent truths invisible to all but a chosen few. When viewed together, these patterns of erasure point toward design rather than accident. Knowledge that could awaken individuals, empower societies, or challenge established hierarchies has repeatedly been targeted for destruction. The 33rd degree exists in the shadow of this long history. Its secrecy may be less about ritual theatre and more about survival in a world where those who control the narrative cannot allow certain truths to see the light of day. If even a portion of what is said about the 33rd degree is true, the implications are staggering. At its heart is the idea that knowledge is not neutral. Knowledge shapes the way human beings understand their place in the universe and therefore determines how power is structured. If a select few possess insights into the nature of reality, consciousness, or hidden energy, then they possess leverage over everyone who does not. The secrecy of the higher degrees suggests that those insights are not meant for universal awakening, but for selective empowerment. Control of knowledge becomes indistinguishable from control of destiny. One implication touches on personal sovereignty. If rituals of the 33rd degree truly initiate an individual into deeper awareness, then every human being has the potential for such transformation. But when that possibility is locked behind oaths, symbols, and hierarchies, humanity at large is denied its inheritance. Instead of widespread spiritual awakening, truth is parceled out to a handful of initiates. The result is a world where enlightenment is rationed, and where the majority remain bound by the limitations of accepted narratives. Another implication concerns the nature of authority itself. Governments and religions claim legitimacy by presenting themselves as custodians of order, morality, and truth. If Freemasonry, through its highest degree, has preserved fragments of an older current of wisdom, then it undermines the monopoly these institutions hold. A politician's laws or a priest's doctrine would no longer carry the same absolute weight if people knew there existed hidden systems of initiation, carrying truth that predate both church and state. Such knowledge could destabilize the foundations of power, making secrecy essential to those who benefit from the current order. The impact on science would be equally profound. If the 33rd degree does indeed guard techniques of energy manipulation, consciousness exploration, or communication with non-human intelligences, then our picture of the universe is incomplete by design. Physics, biology, and psychology would have to be rewritten. The line between science and mysticism would blur, revealing that the two may have always been intertwined. For institutions that thrive on division, science against religion, politics against spirituality, such a revelation would collapse carefully maintained boundaries. Perhaps the most haunting implication is that humanity may be complicit in its own suppression. By accepting the ridicule attached to occult subjects, by mocking what we are told is superstition, society enforces the very silence that keeps these truths buried. If the 33rd degree represents the summit of a hidden mountain of knowledge, then its existence challenges us to ask why we accept so little when so much more might lie within reach. What would it mean if the veil were lifted and the guarded secrets of the 33rd degree became the inheritance of all, rather than the privilege of a few? The story of the 33rd degree of Freemasonry is not one of easy answers, but of enduring mystery. It exists as a shadow at the edge of history, glimpsed only through fragments of ritual, scattered testimonies, and echoes in architecture and myth. Some say it is merely ceremonial, an honorific title bestowed on men of service. Others insist it is a gate to hidden knowledge, guarded for centuries to keep its power from falling into unworthy hands. Whether one sees it as symbol or as secret science, its very secrecy ensures its hold over the imagination. Silence creates an aura stronger than revelation, and it is in that silence that the 33rd degree continues to haunt the corridors of power. The persistence of its symbols suggests a deeper truth. The square and compass carved into cornerstone stones, the unfinished pyramid with the radiant eye, the number 33 recurring in sacred texts and cosmic cycles, all hint at a continuity that stretches beyond any single lodge or era. These fragments connect us to a lineage of seekers who believed that reality was layered, and that those layers could be unveiled through initiation. To deny this possibility is to ignore the echoes that ring across civilizations. To accept it, even as possibility, is to recognize that humanity may live in the shadow of truths carefully concealed. In the end, the 33rd degree raises questions about trust, power, and destiny. Who has the right to decide what knowledge humanity is ready for? Should enlightenment be guarded in secrecy or shared openly as the inheritance of all? If knowledge is power, then secrecy itself becomes an act of control, a way of shaping the future by limiting the present. The legacy of the 33rd degree forces us to confront the uncomfortable idea that history is not simply recorded, but engineered, and that behind the official story lies a deeper current written in symbols rather than words. Perhaps that is the greatest secret of all, that knowledge itself is alive, slipping past suppression, surviving in myth, in architecture, in whispered stories, waiting for those who will look beyond the surface. The 33rd degree may be locked away in hidden chambers, but its resonance cannot be confined. It lingers in the human drive to seek, to question, and to uncover what lies beneath. Whether truth or allegory, deception or revelation, it has already shaped the world in ways we may never fully trace. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of the Occult Knowledge Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.